Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. It's Monday. That means it's J Leman Day on the Illini Inquirer Podcast, bringing in our All-American linebacker to talk about a fourth victory over Northwestern in the last 5 years, and just a nice way to end a season that was a little bit up and down, but you end 8-4. Sure feels a lot different than finishing 7-5, Jay. A memorably fun game for whoever was there because Illinois found a way to pull it out, Jay.
You'll never forget that game, the most snow in Memorial Stadium history. Snow games are just equalizers. And what was even worse, it looked at least like it turned into kind of freezing rain in the second half, which is the absolute worst. That's worse than snow. And you could tell that by both teams how they played. But at the end of the day, you beat your rival. You finish 8-4. You have the most wins in Memorial Stadium history in a 2-year span. You're close, I think, to the most wins in 2 years ever for a program. And so definitely head the right direction. I know we all have these grand plans of being a playoff team, and I think that day will come. But you also could be one of the 5 SEC teams or one of the Big Ten teams that changed coaches because they didn't get the results they needed. Most of those were changing because they didn't get the results, other than Ole Miss. Every one of those was changed. They didn't get the results they wanted, and so we're in a much better position.
I want to talk about the season in totality, Jay. I want to talk about the offseason ahead, which is what I think everyone is thinking about. And then we'll talk about college football at large. You talked about the carousel, 5 SEC coaching changes yesterday, 1 in the Big Ten that I'm interested to get your thoughts about. And then we still got 2 openings left in the Big Ten. But Illinois does get it done, and it's on the back of its defense, right? Like the offense in the second half, just time after time, just could not deal the knockout blow, but the defense responded time after time. And for a senior day that will be memorable, not because a lot of fans were in the stands, but the seniors stepped up. Gabe Akis was an absolute game wrecker, and what a November for him for 6.5 sacks. Miles Scott, like finally making those plays on the ball. Dylan Rosiak, Hank Beatty with a big throw in this game to Tanner Arkin, and Luke Altmaier with another win. So take it where you want to go with those seniors, but I was just so happy for that senior class that's made such a significant impact to end with a win.
Yeah, especially on defense. Let's give credit where credit's due. We said this defense needed to help them win 3 games this year. I thought they helped them win the Duke game. They ultimately helped them win this game. But you could also make an argument they helped them win Maryland and Rutgers by keeping them in the football game. So that wasn't all bad. I think it's just the way they looked in certain games was the struggle, and that you feel like, hey, they definitely lost us the Washington game, or maybe nobody played good against Wisconsin. So, but that being said, to have a great defense, this is what fans understand, is your good players that are your great leaders, whether they be captains, have to play great. And when they do, that's when your defense will shine. Gabe Akis was on a tear the last month of the season. He was unblockable really against Northwestern. He kind of did what he wanted. I think one of the unsung attributes of Gabe is sometimes you have just a true pass rusher who's good at getting after the quarterback, but not great in the run game. Gabe is actually a very solid run defender. I think it's a really underspoken about because the sacks are what people look at, and that's what will largely get him awards as sacks, but he's a really good run defender. He's been a tremendous leader and a guy that gives you a ton of reps and versatility at that. And I will say the same for Miles Scott. Here's a guy that, I'm going to talk about some guys that were not that high, as we get into recruiting season, we're not that highly touted. I mean, Gabe Akis wasn't that highly touted. Great find. Looked like a man-child from day one, but wasn't that high. Miles Scott, walk-on, right? Becomes a 2-time captain. I still remember the pick he had against Toledo 2.5 years ago to really win that game and turn that game around. Casey Washington might argue whether that won the game or not when you actually go down to that game, down to the wire. But you have Miles Scott make 2 picks. You have Dylan Rosiak with a huge play. Probably the biggest defensive play of the game, I would probably say. I could make an argument. I know there's some picks, but a huge play on the goal line for a 3 or 4 yard loss on Preckle. If I'm Preckle, I think he played well, but Ben, run lower because you were getting blown up over and over and over again.
Matthew looked like a former tight end, and he went the wrong way on that one.
Listen, man, if you're going to run high, you will die. Like literally, and Matthew Bailey might have done it 3 or 4 times. Was literally out there murking folks. So Matthew Bailey played really well, right? And this is a Matthew Bailey game in the trenches, running. He played really well. So your key defensive players. You can see how good this defense can be when your defensive players play well. Now, if you added Xavier Scott in there, who was another senior leader, you might say, well, this could have been a different game. Do you win that Washington game? Are you closer in some of the other games you got blown out in to make those plays? I give a lot of credit to the player development and for those guys taking this team and this program really to an area in 4 or 5 years that's never been. So you really got to give credit to the seniors. We can criticize all we want. I can tell you this much. Nobody wanted to win, and nobody worked harder than those guys to win. Sometimes it didn't go like they wanted, but you can't say they didn't respond. You can't say they hung their head. And in the end, it's not the highest touted recruits. Yes, Luke Altmaier was a 4-star guy and whatnot. I understand that. But really, it's the guys that develop year in and year out and get better. This is the progression, right? We see this with guys like Tip Ryman. We see this with guys like myself. You get better and better and become a great player. And that's where the player development in a program like Illinois comes in.
Yeah, and I thought the offensive line struggled in the second half, but the first half I thought they imposed themselves. Tanner Arkin, I want to keep mentioning, is a guy that was a great find and great development for his impact on the run blocking. But I want to bring up that defense. Outside of the first drive at Wisconsin, the Darian Dupree run, the last 4 games, albeit against worse teams, but it just felt like it was a different defense the last 4 games, Jay. So how much of it was opponent? Or what was it that freed these guys up to finally make the plays we kind of been waiting for?
Well, I think the opponents have to do with it. You played a string of some really good quarterbacks in a row there. You had Mendoza, you had Julian Sayin, you had DeMond Williams. You had some guys in there that were tough offensive football players. Let's be real. At times, I think we played an overly conservative game, and I think once, like not to lose, once we kind of got away from that, we played better. Our hands were, the ball is the program. Our hands were on the ball. It seemed like 5 or 6 times more in the last 4 games of the season than it was prior to that. I mean, like,
I could look up that stat for you right now. The pass breakups were insane.
Between pass breakups, batted balls, interceptions, fumbles, just hands on the ball. Maybe we didn't even recover it, but we at least touched the ball. Like the defense had its hand on the ball, I would say an average of 5 to 6 times a game. Like that's game changing when the defense can touch the ball 5 or 6 times a game. And it happens through aggression. It happens through, playing smart. Like I can't tell you, Gabe Akis could literally kill quarterbacks, but he's always so smart when he hits the quarterback, right? He never gets a penalty. He goes for the ball, right? The days of killing quarterbacks are done because of rule changes. And so, but they played smart. They didn't beat themselves. And when they needed to get a stop in the red zone or a turnover when our offense sputtered, you felt like they came up and did that. And so I give them a ton of credit.
Here's what I got for you. 17 pass breakups over the first 8 games. Okay. 28 over the last 4.
So yeah, I mean, basically at a clip that was more than double, because it was 8 to 4. I mean, it was 3 or 4 times that. And that doesn't count some of the turnovers against good competition. You take out that Western Illinois game and the Duke game, and really they struggled to get turnovers.
Yeah.
Really struggled. And then you felt like if they could have got a key turnover against Wisconsin, that could have maybe flipped the game, the Gabe Akis play. But and this is why defensive ends and outside linebackers get paid so much. It's literally to wreck 1 or 2 drives a game. Which they do. And if they can wreck 1 or 2, Micah Parsons, I mean, doesn't have great sack numbers this year, but he's like leads the NFL in pressures, right? Just the disruption that these guys do and what they can do. And Gabe has a lot of pressures as well, but they literally wreck drives and then that ends that drive. And that's worth it, right? So how many players actually win a game for you? They're a position that can win a game for you.
Yeah, 4 forced fumbles the last 2 games, also 4 interceptions the last 3 games. Obviously doubled their interception total in this one game for the entire season. So nice to see that defense end the season. We'll talk about the coaching staff moving forward here, Jay. You brought up Matt Bailey. You texted me, Bailey played like a beast in this game. And I normally don't do this, but our message board has had a Matt Bailey debate the last few days. He missed some tackles on that first drive.
Sure.
He missed some plays.
I know he missed the 4th down on Preckle, yeah.
But what do you think of him as a player? Because there seems to be a debate on our message board about him.
So here's what I think. I think Matthew Bailey is an elite in the box tackler. He's also playing with some kind of hand injury, which is not verified, but which, if you're a tackler, really hurts your ability to tackle. Just, I mean, I would like everybody to try to put a club on and try to go tackle.
He's got a hand and a shoulder. Like
okay,
the shoulder's still hurting him.
Okay, so the hand and the shoulder, right? So like these guys are not 100%. That's not an excuse. Tanner Heckle's not 100%. You can make the argument nobody's 100%. One thing that Gabe's been able to do is been able to stay healthy throughout his career. And I think that's something that we don't want to take for granted. But I think Matthew Bailey is an elite in the box tackler, and also put Robert Fitzgerald as an elite in the box tackler as well. But the trade-off for an elite in the box tackler as a safety is you can struggle in coverages, especially against some of the elite tight ends we have. Like Max Clare is an NFL tight end. There's a couple other NFL tight ends in this conference.
USC kid McCree,
87, I think. Really good football players. Penn State has a couple guys that I think will be really, really good tight ends. Obviously, they had Tyler Warren last year. And yes, did Matthew Bailey struggle at times on that? Has he struggled in coverage? He's not a natural cover guy. But I think if you're trying to build a physical defense, he cleaned up a lot of plays for you. And if I were to take a picture of how people tackle, he's probably one of our most physical tacklers at the point of attack. So I like Matthew Bailey. Is he a perfect player? No, I don't. Has he struggled with injuries? Has he struggled with some coverage? Yes. Do I think that there's a reason he's a DB that's always on the field? Yes, because he's one of our best overall football players. That's a great identification by the football coaches. You know, he got out of Moline, didn't run great. They saw something in him. They thought it'd be great. We've heard the story. I know he missed some tackles. Great players that play downhill will miss tackles. I'd rather have you make 10 tackles with 2 tackles for loss and 3 missed tackles than 15 tackles for a 5-yard gain. And I think that's the way Matthew Bailey plays. I get that the 4th down he should have made, but he's a good football player.
Yeah, like PFF, and I know some people take these with a grain of salt, but they have him for 10 missed tackles this year, but 20, I think it's 27 stops, Jay, which is a metric that is a win for the defense, a play that is like a negative play for the offense. And that's what he does. Like he makes some of those negative plays on a defense that didn't make enough of them. He's got a really interesting NFL draft decision. I think he'd be a day 3 pick from what I've heard, Jay. So I think Illinois is going to try to make it worth his while, but they value him highly. I know that.
Here's the deal. I would love to see the yards after contact for a Matthew Bailey tackle compared to other defensive backs. Like, I mean, there's a lot of ankle biters out there, you know, and you're like, okay, you tackle Caden Fagan, he falls three yards for it. No knock on Cox or whatever, who had a big hits on Jeremiah Smith when he flipped him and stuff like that, or Gene Martin. But are they able to actually stop momentum at the point of attack and drive a guy back? I think Matthew Bailey's been able to do that. Here's a good litmus test. If we were to put Matthew Bailey if he were to go in the portal, how many Big Ten teams would take him?
16, 17, yeah.
A lot, right? A lot. So the thing I don't get about Illinois fans is like, yeah, we got this guy. There's a debate. Okay, dude, he could be a starter on 15 other teams. Well, or 16. So it's like, why would I not want Matthew Bailey? Is he perfect? No, but none of your college players are perfect outside of generational talents like Devin Witherspoon or Saquon Barkley, where you're like, okay, these guys are just unbelievable at their position. Everybody has deficiencies. It's how do you work through that? I do believe that the defense they run does help him. And I think if there's a switch to the defense scheme or maybe personnel wise, that may play into would Matthew Bailey come back?
Yeah, agree with you. All right, let's do one more on the game. Offense the last 2 games, Jay. Wisconsin's a good defense, but only 10 points in that game. Northwestern, I know it was snowing, I know the elements, but only 20 points in that game, and that they scored off some turnovers in this game, and kudos to David Olano for making those 2 field goals. What went wrong with the offense here in the last 2 weeks?
There was obviously some serious ball handling issues on both sides. We saw it with Preston Stone. We saw Luke have more fumbles, and I think that was because of the elements. I really do. Okay, so that throws off a lot of things. One thing I'll give Lunny credit for is I thought he was aggressive despite the elements early on in the game. And like, we're going to throw the ball down. It wasn't even a great ball to Colin Dixon. I know it was into the wind. I know the elements. I think that's a touchdown in a real game without the elements, but you completed passes. You weren't afraid to do trick plays. Whether the one with Beatty worked, the other one was almost a disaster where you threw it back. So you run that. I love that they were aggressive in that, okay? I like that they were able to run the football, at least in the first half. What I didn't like was it felt like we were not able to run the ball in the second half consistently, and we weren't able to make simple short passes, which I felt we should have with Beatty, Colin Dixon, Hudson Clement. Where was that? Because Luke's good enough to do that. Now, do I think the scramble of the game was Luke Altmaier, scrambling down to get us into a first down to make it maybe a 7-point game? I can't remember, but he had one scramble that was unbelievable. That epitomized who Luke is. So all of that to say, I really feel like they were so good in that high red zone area for the first 10 games. They struggled in that area. Okay. And then number two, I just wish they had stayed as aggressive as they could. But again, the elements were there. I think there were some questionable decisions when it came to, I still can't believe that David Braun actually kicked a field goal rather than going for a touchdown. I think that was a huge coaching blunder. As I also thought that Olano probably could have kicked a field goal at that time in the first drive. But I wasn't on the ground. So, I mean, Bret probably saw
like the wind and going into the wind, it was nasty.
It was tough.
I just, when David Braun, I was like, are you ever going to get back there?
And that was
my thing. Are you going to get back in that place? Given the way Preston Stone was playing at that point, I didn't think.
The only reason you were there is because you recovered a fumble on the one.
Yeah. Right. And at worst, you're
10 minutes left. I can't remember.
Yeah, and at worst, you're just giving Illinois the ball at the 3-yard line, and they got to get out of there. Like, I just thought that was the play.
Well, and at that point, you still need a touchdown to win.
Yes.
It wasn't like, hey, I'm down 6. I'm going to go 3-3. I'm going to go 3 points to be down 3, or I'm going ahead. So I thought that was a major coaching decision that I did not agree with from David Braun, who I think is a good coach and has done a good job, but I did not agree with that.
The holiday season can be so much fun around your loved ones, but it also can be stressful. Think about, what am I going to prepare for that holiday meal at home? What am I going to give that loved one for the perfect gift this holiday season? So whether you're setting an unforgettable gift or treating yourself to everyday perfection, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Gift USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, and so much more. I'm telling you, Omaha sent me some of the steaks, some of the burgers, some of the beef franks as well. Those delicious hot dogs. They're some of the best, most tender meat you can get. And now during their cyber sale, you can get 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites at omahasteaks.com. Don't miss the best deals of the season and exclusive limited time offers. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. That's $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. Again, save big on unforgettable gifts with omahasteaks.com. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code Illini at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code Illini at checkout. Terms apply. See sites for details. All right, Jay, let's zoom out on this season. 8-4, going to a bowl game. Nashville is kind of what I was thinking. I've heard, though, since then, Jay, ReliaQuest is still in play. So maybe Tampa again for a second time in 4 years. But 8-4, a bowl game. How would you grade the season for Illinois?
I think based on everything, I'll give it a B. I certainly don't, and B to B plus. It's certainly not an A season. I think an A minus, an A season would be, A minus would be 9, and A plus would be 10 wins and a playoff. I mean, you can't get better than that. But I give us a B. We're still trending the right direction. We still, have a coach that brings unbelievable stability. I think the hard part is the losses looked worse this year. Other than the Oregon game, we had a lot less close games, although that was a one possession game, but didn't feel that close. But the way we lost compared to last year just felt like it gave you this sense that we were farther away than we should be. And to be fair, teams that we played against that we didn't look great against are in the Big Ten championship. So that is your top tier. Are we a top third team? Borderline. I think we're a top half team, yes, for sure. I think you can put us right up there with, on any given day, Illinois, with Washington, with Iowa, Minnesota thrown in there. That's what I kind of see this football team being right now.
No, I think that's really fair, all of it. What was the most encouraging part of the season for you, Jay?
Most encouraging. I've watched a lot of quarterbacks in my life. And at Illinois, it was really encouraging to see a guy that can go win games like he did, and really fun to see. You get accustomed to it. I am pretty sure we will probably, no matter who you get in the portal, they're not going to have the experience of Luke Altmaier. And so the chances of us having a better quarterback is not what I actually, but as far as encouraging going forward is, I really didn't feel, and this is always a key point to me when you're rebuilding programs, is I thought we played well against the run most of the year.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. That's why I was really discouraged when we gave up 200 yards and 84 on one play to Wisconsin. But that to me shows that you can battle in the trenches with good teams. And I think that is so important. We did that against USC. We didn't do great against Indiana in anything, I understand. We had short fields against Ohio State. I get that.
But defended the run well against them.
But we defended the run well, right? And so I'm like, if we can stop the run, it's something to build on. And so I think, to me, that's the most encouraging thing that I've seen.
Probably don't get a lot of attention because the counting stats, the sacks aren't there. I thought Tommy Wadurajaye was a monster win out of the portal. He's a guy who's transferred a lot of places. Illinois got the most out of him. Kudos to Terrence Jamison. James Thompson, really good against the run. And the development of guys like Angel McCollum, Pat Farrell was better this year with the third year in the program. Kunin, good find with Eli Kunin making an impact. And right. Joe Barna, who's going to have to play a monster impact next year. Great game against Northwestern for Barna. So Terrence Jamison's really good at his job. Jay.
Really good at the development of stuff. And I think my thing is to be as good as we were against the run with some of the issues we had at linebacker. I think Dylan Rosiak's a good football player. I think he had 3 or 4 injuries. I don't know if it was the same thing throughout this year. And I think he's probably, if I've been in these seasons before, he's probably patchworked together and grateful for 3 or 4 weeks off. Like, to be honest, he probably, by the amount of tape on him and the amount of time he has to come out of the game to do stuff. Usually when you see a good run defense, you'll have a couple different factors. You'll have a good D-line, you'll have good linebackers, and you'll have a good strong safety. You felt like we had a good strong safety. You felt like our D-line was really solid. The linebackers, although at times I thought the linebackers played more aggressive and downhill. I saw Malachi Hood come downhill. I saw James Kreutz get his hand on the ball. I saw Rosiak come downhill a little bit, right? I know some of those are stunts and whatnot. I understand. But I felt like our run defense, for having what I will call average linebacker play, which Dylan Rosiak played above average, I think, when he was healthy, but average linebacker play, I think that's a step in the right direction. Who do you have behind him? I saw Ishmael Conte got into the game. Yeah. Is Grant Bierman going to be that guy? Will he be ready to play? You see a guy like Posa and was it Catalone or whatever in Wisconsin. Can we get a guy to play at that level? I think Bierman can do that. You give him a year in the weight room. He's got the length and the range.
What was the most discouraging part of the season for you, Jay?
I think the offensive line for me, the inability to run the football when we really wanted to run the football. I thought pass protection was good, but it's not that many times that you have 4 seniors on your offensive line coming back, all experienced with a quarterback. And I never felt like we were truly ever to call it, I call it the Bielema boa constrictor, where you get up on a team and you just run the clock out and the time just disappears, right? I never felt like we got to that point with this team. And I felt like this was a team that was going to be what they did to people.
I did too.
And I never felt like
the offseason. Yeah.
It was always Luke made a play. Great. Or Luke scrambled and did this, or he hit Hudson Clement or Beatty went in. It wasn't, hey, everybody in Stadium Mills were handing to Caden Fagan, and we're going to get 3 first downs and chew up 7 minutes on the clock, and you're no chance for you to come back. So that
why do you think it was? Why do you think that was? What did you see watching this thing?
One, early on in the season, I thought we played high. I thought we were playing higher than the defensive line. Number two, I don't think we had great. I think we had good players. I don't think we had great run blocking maulers blow people off the ball. It just didn't happen. Whether it was a lack of athleticism or a lack of push. I think later in the year, I saw J.C. Davis and Tanner Arkin pair up and combo block great. I just never thought we had great push on the offensive line. I know that's not an answer people want to necessarily say or hear, but that's what I saw. And
felt like your guys were Priestley and Arkin. Those are the two I felt like got consistent push.
Yeah. It would get push and Priestley was kind of grind. It never understood why Brandon Henderson seems to have the ability to do it, but always doesn't seem to execute the way maybe the coaches want to happen. And so I guess I was disappointed in that. Nothing I was disappointed in was the special teams. I thought for the most part they were good, but in the games that you were bad, they were really bad. 3 block punts is really bad. Really just the punt team, I should say, because the field goals were pretty good. Hank Beatty, when he had a chance to return, a good returner. But that being said, I felt the special teams took a step back.
Yeah, 2 terrible snaps in some key moments that turned games, and just Crimmins wasn't consistent at placing the ball. It felt like, right?
Well, especially against Northwestern, we had 3 of them into the end zone where you felt like in a game like that, getting the team backed up is a huge win and critical, right? And it wasn't consistent in directional punting and or placing inside the 10-yard line. So I think that those are issues.
Jay, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised you didn't say anything about the defense there.
Well, most disappointing. I should probably say the defense, so thanks for covering me on that.
I just wanted to bring it up. We'll talk about potential staff changes, but just overall, it's weird because the numbers by the end of the season, because of the last month, don't look as bad as it felt, right? Just because Indiana was atrocious. Duke gave up a lot of yards, but got a lot of takeaways. And just the Washington game is such a bad taste in the mouth of the entire season.
So I'm not going to backtrack, but when I think disappointing, it's all based on expectations.
Yeah.
So my expectations for the offensive line were very, very high. Okay. Are they a bad offensive line? No, they are not a bad offensive line. We may see a bad offensive line. We have 5 new starters on there, right? We really know what a bad offensive line is. And we've seen bad offensive line. We've seen 4 or 5 freshman starters on the offensive line. We've seen bad offensive lines, okay? They're not a bad offensive line. I think my expectations were here. They probably played here. Also, I think there's NFL players on that offensive line, okay? Let's talk about the defense. I think what's tough is you felt like you had 3 or 4 NFL players on that defense with Gabe Backus, with Matthew Bailey at some point, Xavier Scott certainly. Sounds like Miles Scott, that free safety position has done well in the NFL, Kirby Joseph and Quan Martin and different things. So you feel like Juice Clark could be a player as well.
I think he's their best draft prospect next year, Jay. He's
played
really well at the end of the year.
So you feel like, okay, we've got some guys. You felt like you didn't make enough big plays to be an average defense. It felt like that. Like you didn't make enough disruptive turnovers and what you need to do. So, like I said, I was happy when they stopped the run. We had people throw the ball all over the yard. So I would put the defense on equal footing, I guess, with the offensive line. So
we'll put a pin on that.
So, these are all, I don't get scripted questions, guys. So, don't throw the messenger.
Oh, yeah. I'm throwing it at him. Is this sustained success, Jay? 3 8+ win seasons in 4 years?
Yes. I think at this point you have to say it's sustained success. I know we were one game away from a bowl game the first year in year 3. Those were setbacks, but even those were competitive football years. We have been largely competitive. There have been 4 or 5 games where we have, outside that first year, that we have been competitive, and I think that is sustained success at Illinois. And you have put yourself kind of in that 6 to 10 range, in the 6 to 9 range in the Big Ten, of a team that, I can tell you this, nobody took Illinois lightly this year. Nobody looks, there's, in the words of one great coach, I won't mention his name, but if you're looking on the schedule for the Patsy and you can't find the Patsy, you're the Patsy. I don't feel like it was like, oh, Illinois, that's a win. We can do that. You felt like you had at least respect among the league.
This is a weird, like convoluted way to look at this. Wisconsin football rushed the field after they beat you.
Right?
I mean, that's a terrible loss for Illinois. I'm not trying
terrible loss. I get
it. Wisconsin rushed the field. So that's why I would be like, if I would have told you that 5-6 years ago, like that in itself would be like, they've arrived.
It's kind of a ho-hum thing. But we got to look at this. We'll open up a bigger view of programs that I'll just talk about when me and you were kids, programs that were good. Nebraska's not as good as us right now. Virginia Tech used to be a good program under Frank Beamer, has really struggled. Okay. The Michigan State, who we'll talk more about that, has struggled. Wisconsin has struggled. Purdue has gone 2 years without winning a Big Ten game or something like that. I mean, and that's guys. There's bad ball out there. Maryland had a 9-game losing streak to finish, or 8-game losing streak to finish the season. So
and they're doing this. They're doing this, Jay, all through these huge changes in college football.
Sure.
This was not guaranteed. So for Bret Bielema and Josh Whitman to usher this in, I know you want more. There's been some meat on the bones. You talked about those 5-win years. Just think if Illinois had won one more game in those years and 5 straight bowl games. Don't think that's ever been done at Illinois. Obviously this year left some meat on the bone. I don't think they did in 2024. I think that was about as good as Illinois could have gotten that year. But
they cleaned that up. But I guess my question is this: on a bigger zoom out thing, is a realignment of what traditional powers are. And I think that's the shocking thing. We've seen it. The most stark example is Indiana. They somehow they have guys. Coach Signetti, and then they pay money to get guys in the portal. They pay guys for visits, whatever they do. They're realigning themselves as a top 5 Big Ten program. And I think Illinois is realigning itself as a top 3rd, top half program. And you got guys like Whitman and Bielema who are as competitive as any to stay up there and to grow that. You feel like the only team that has seemed kind of unfazed by this is the Ohio State. I mean, they are entrenched there, and no one's going to try to move them, and they probably have more money and backing. I saw Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate will return next year, supposedly. I don't know how much that will cost. I mean, I heard that in one tweet. I don't know if that's actually true.
I can't imagine Carnell Tate would. He's going to be a top 20 draft pick.
That's what someone said, or maybe they would say they would play in a playoff, which I would be obvious, but. Jeremiah Smith, I don't think is eligible yet.
Oh, he's got to go one more year.
I think he would go any other place.
He'd be number 1 if he entered the draft now.
But all that being said, there is a massive realignment in the Big Ten Conference, and so there's panic among other Big Ten teams of how can we actually get into that. And I think Illinois has positioned itself at just the right time. It felt like they got Bret in there. It felt like if they stuck 1 or 2 more years with Lovie Smith, we could be in a Purdue-like situation. And so they've got the right guy at the helm, and they have stability.
One of my favorite things about waking up in the morning is coffee. And it's even better if you get it from Columbia Street Roastery. And the best thing to do around the holidays is give coffee. And they got a great way of doing that. Columbia Street Roastery, if you go to csrcoffee.com, they have a subscription box that you can get. Each month, Columbia Street sends you freshly roast coffee of 3 different half-pound bags. You can get from their flavored coffee box, their dark roast, their medium roast, their decaf box, and you can get a subscription for $25 per month. What a great way and what a great gift to give. Or if you want to get something for yourself, go to csrcoffee.com, check out all their fall flavors, all their great brews, and they also have tea and hot cocoa. So go check them out at csrcoffee.com. And our listeners, you get 10% off your first order if you use the code GOILLINI2025. Again, go to visit csrcoffee.com, get 10% off your first order with the code GOILLINI2025. You get free shipping on orders over $45. That's all at Columbia Street Roastery at csrcoffee.com. All right, let's focus on the offseason now, Jay. How does Illinois maintain this momentum, right? Because this is the most turnover on the roster they'll have since that 2022 season when they lost their quarterback, lost a bunch of their offensive line, lost all those playmakers in the defense. What's this offseason mean for Bret Bielema?
It means a lot of money to be spent. I just to be quite frank, and Bret mentioned it maybe in a press conference 2 or 3 weeks ago, this is turning more like an NFL roster. And I think you're at a time in your program right now where your development is getting better, especially at certain positions. You've recruited and developed. At other positions, it hasn't been great. And also on the offensive line, you haven't been able to develop a lot of the young guys because they haven't had the opportunity. And so it sounds like, and again, I just read between the lines of press conferences on what Bret says. It sounds like he feels like he has ample resources to go and build a football team. Now, do I think those ample resources rival Oregon, rival Ohio State? No, I don't. Do I think they're top half of the Big Ten? Yeah, I do. I do think they're top half of the Big Ten. Do I think we have when we look at experienced, successful coach, I think we have a top 5 Big Ten coach? I actually do. I think we really do. When you look at the championships he's won and whatnot, so you think you're in the top third in coaching. So you see all these different things. So you have those pieces in the puzzle. You have the coach, you have the AD, obviously, with Whitman, and you have the money. What they've got to do is they've got to take an honest look, first and foremost, of who is in the locker room right now that we believe can play meaningful minutes. Not that we like, not that we think is going to be good. Who, when we put them up against Damon Williams or Denzel Boston or this guy that we can count on, can this guy stop this guy to win this game? And if he can't yet, you got to hit the portal to get somebody in there. Because what we've seen is we think that, and maybe it's just them talking great about their players, is maybe they've had a little bit more faith in their development in some positions and in their players than maybe they should have. And so if that's the case, you've got to look across the country and say, who can come in and be a day one starter? It has been what I have seen across the country, and I don't follow recruiting like you do, is I feel like people always love to stockpile defensive linemen. We know that. But defensive backs have become a premium to stockpile because of passing, because they get worn out, because they get hurt. We're seeing 5, 6, 7 commits in one class.
Can I give you something there? Because you play 5 at a time, right? But
yeah,
someone in the program told me, like, you have to have 10. You have to have 10 because they get hurt more than anybody. And boy, has that been the case. And you mentioned, where have they probably thought too much of their guys? It's probably in that secondary 2 deep, because one starter gets hurt in 2022 or 2023 and 2025. And 3 out of the last 5 years felt like they haven't had enough playable defensive backs.
Listen, there's a reason that USC has gone out and tried to get 6 or 7 corners in this recruiting class alone. Like I was reading, like Lincoln Riley, I know they have like 35. They have some huge class, right? It's some massive class, 6 or 7 corners that they're trying to bring in that can help. There's between the soft tissue injuries, the concussions from hits, the shoulder injuries from taking guys on, the hand injuries for battling for balls, DBs are dropping like flies. And now you've got to stockpile defensive backs. And that has been the one area we have seen Illinois really hurt, whether it's the Purdue game in 2022, where they were missing a guy, right? Where Taz got hurt. There were some different things. They are getting exposed. Quarterbacks are so good. If you have a weak link in your defense, And that's what's so good about Xavier Scott. He was an eraser of a lot of errors at the nickel position. That's what gets exposed over and over and over again. We're on a roll, man. We can go a full hour because we're not even talking about film room today. So let's go. But get me fired up. We gotta go find defensive backs though.
Before we get to the coaching staff, let's stick on the roster, right? What are the other biggest needs that you see on this roster? I mean, they're losing a lot here, Jay. But what are the other 2 or 3 biggest needs?
So I think defensive back is a huge need. We talked about that. Okay. You feel like you got one really solid starter in Juice Clark. With Bailey, Miles Scott, and Cox gone, who is your plan? Is it Heckle?
You hope to get Bailey or Scott back. I think Scott needs to go. Bailey, if he's an early day 3 pick, I think he'd go. So
Patterson, who hasn't been healthy, I don't know what the status is on that. Who played a lot last year.
You hope Heckle takes a step forward, but you can't count on that, right?
You can't count on it. So you have that. I think. Listen, you'll take as many outside linebackers as you can get. You'll take as many big James Thompsons as you can get. Defensive line is always a premium. You can do a lot with them, right? You can move them to multiple positions. But, man, we got to get a linebacker that can be a legitimate run-stuffing like linebacker. Where you're losing Dylan Rosiak. James Kreutz has played good at times. He's been inconsistent, though. At times he hasn't played great. I thought Malachi Hood would be a legit run stuffer at this point in his career. I thought late last year he would be a full-time starter this year. We didn't see that. Maybe that was injury. Maybe that was something else. I'm not really sure.
Just consistency and instincts with him, isn't it?
Right. It feels like that. It feels like there's something that's not lining up to production. Like if somebody's not producing, I always tell this to players. And maybe this because I wasn't a test guy. I wasn't a combine guy because I never combined or tested great. But you turn on the tape, there's production. Like there's no way around production when you're a college football team. You got to get guys. And on defense, you can go out there and do your job. I covered my gap or I covered my guy and not make plays. But great defensive players put it on them to go make a play, make the coaches notice them, and be productive. You got to be productive. I don't think we have that much of a productive linebacker, a guy that you're saying, hey, game in and game out. And it doesn't have to be Sonny Styles, who is a first-round pick, right? But like game in and game out, making big-time plays. So I think linebacker, I know I've went through every defensive position here. But
I had just wrote in my to-do list this offseason, playmakers at every defensive position. So the one I feel best about, Jay, which is weird because they've had to go to transfer portal heavy. I think they're going to add one defensive lineman, but I don't know if they need a bunch of them because they have some guys coming back. Edges, they got to get some guys in the
they got to get some guys, and they play a lot of edges. Can Daniel Brown get healthy and take the step they thought he could be out of JUCO? Can Joe Barna be an everyday starter? Okay. Lowry's done, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Lowry, Bryant, Ackes, all done.
Right. So you're going to need some depth at edge. And the problem is it's hard to play in the line of scrimmage in the Big Ten as a true freshman. Like when he says, hey, 3 or 4 of this recruiting class are going to start, I'm pretty sure he's not talking about guys on the line of scrimmage. It's just hard to do that. Receiver, defensive back, I can see it. Very hard to do that in the Big Ten.
All right. Offensive.
On the offense, I didn't mention this. I think a receiver, you're going to have some weapons coming back.
Yeah.
But offensive line. And, of course, quarterback. That's a big elephant in the room.
I expect them to add like 6 or 7 offensive line through JUCO and transfer portal. By the way, I really do. Quarterback, go. Why would J Leman go into the portal? What are you looking for? How much are you willing to spend?
I think you got to be willing to spend $2 million. I know you probably paid. I'm guessing at this stuff, so just don't quote me on this. But
Luke Altmaier did not make that unless he had ridiculous NIL throughout the season.
I think Luke Altmaier probably was something like this. Luke probably made $500,000 his first year, maybe $1 million his second year, maybe 1.5 his third year. All speculation. I think Tennessee offered him $2 million. I don't know. It's all speculation.
That's very close. Yeah.
Okay. So
he made over $1 million this year, I think.
Okay. So I get that. I get that you may have to go pay a guy more money than what you even were paying your 3-year starter. But money's been going up, and to get you, if quarterback's that big of a deal, it depends. If I need if I don't feel good about my guys there and I need a multiple year starter, that's a little bit different. But I think you're at a point in the program. We talked about this in a podcast earlier, maybe a couple of weeks ago, that you got to go out and get somebody with real game experience. Who is that? I don't know. But that fits in the system for your coordinator of who that coordinator would be. And so I think that's got to be a huge priority, because you're going to build your other offensive, team and personnel around that. Now, I don't know where that quarterback's at. I don't know if it's connected to the new offensive coordinator. If we have a new offensive coordinator, I don't know any of that. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be in the Darian Mensah, Carson Beck level of spending on a quarterback.
Is what, $4 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Levitt, when he enters the portal, is going to be something like that.
What was Mendoza? Mendoza was $3 or $4 million, I think. I didn't.
And you see how big of an impact that can make. I'm only using this as like an avatar and an example, but somebody like Lincoln Kienholz, who is sitting behind Julian Sayin, has played a little bit of football, made that a competition. It's kind of in the Luke Altmaier mold. Like, that kind of guy makes a lot of sense for me to come in, to bring in, compete with Ethan Hampton, compete with Carson Boyd,
sure,
have the talent rise to the top, right? Like, and you're maybe not spending the top dollar because you got so many other areas you have to fill. But man, what have we learned the last 2 years, Jay? If you don't have a quarterback, what's the point of it all?
You don't have a chance in college football. Like, you just don't have a chance to win football games in college football if you don't have a quarterback. And what I think what Brett can sell is, hey, my last two quarterbacks transferred in. They weren't really highly touted. They were good, but they're both in the NFL now. And I think Luke will be in the NFL in some shape or capacity.
All right. Running back. People ask me about running back. How do you feel there?
Man, I'll say this, when Aiden Lawford is healthy, I like him. I really like him. I think he's a good player.
Agree.
He's a little different than both the other ones, but
it's kind of a nice mix. Like, it's like Khalil Valentine. I always felt like this year was a year away, but boy, this was a nice, I think, stepping stone to next year. If he adds 10 pounds, I think, Jay, he could be great. Caden Fagan, I feel like when he ran the ball late, he got lower. He added a little bit more, but if he's your number two back and you have those other two, I feel good about that position as long as one of Fagan and Lawford stay healthy. Right. Yeah. But some people disagree. So I don't know where you went.
Here's what I would say. One, I think they're good enough that you don't have to hit the portal on them. I think one of them might hit the portal themselves.
It's possible.
Just where they're at. I also think, and I know this has like been a banned topic for the Illinois coaching staff to talk about Caden Fagan in their position, but I think you might sit down with Caden Fagan and say, hey, in an offense where there's an H-back and you block, you get 3 or 4 carries a game as a super back, and we also throw the ball 3 or 4 times to you, and you're on the field not 20 plays a game, not 30 plays a game, but you're on the field 40 plays a game. And it's what the NFL would use you at, and you have 1 more year to play here. Is this something you would look at? I think that's a conversation I would want to have. And then can you develop other guys? Jordan Anderson got a couple carries at H-back.
My thing that I think he needs to improve, and maybe frustrated me more than anything with him this year, Jay, was he needs to be a better blocker
for his size.
Yeah, I just think he needs to be a better, more consistent blocker. So that'd be my question at tight end, H-back for him.
Well, I would agree. He's a really good receiver. Like,
I wish he'd get the ball more there.
He's probably a more natural receiver than runner. Boy, that's hard to say.
Yeah.
But he looks very natural when he catches the ball and gets out in open space. If I know Brett, he's not going to be satisfied with just having 3. He was bummed when Josh McCray left. I don't think Josh McCray got many carries at Georgia. But at the same time, I think they're going to try to bring – I don't know who they have as young players. They had a guy out of Jersey who they were high on, right? That got hurt.
Suffered a knee injury early in training camp. John Forster, Cedric White is a guy that they have. Nelson Wheeler is more of a scat back coming in, really speed. That's why the development of those guys could be your 4th back if you keep all your time.
I think Forster when I saw because he was a little bit bigger guy.
Yeah.
He reminded me of a guy that they're trying to get to be a real dude, just in looking at the measurables. So I don't think you need to go get a running back probably, but I do think you need to look at how you're using running backs. I would love to see one season where Aiden Lawfrey's healthy. I feel bad for the guy. I do think he's a legitimate – remember, this is a guy that we had to beat out Iowa for to get. He was all world in high school. If you watch some of those Gibson City highlights, I mean, he was at a different speed. But I think when he's healthy, he's been a good football player for us.
I agree. All right. Last one for the offseason for Illinois. What, if any, changes does Bret Bielema have to make to his staff, Jay?
Well, I think you got to shake up the defensive staff. That doesn't necessarily mean that Aaron Henry goes, although I think some fans have already made up their mind despite the last 4 games. But we saw him do that in 2023. He fired Andy Boo. He fired one other coach, or one other coach got let go. Finellis, and he made some changes. And his quote was, hey, we didn't have enough success. We needed to make some changes. So I don't think you'll have the same defensive staff back. I don't know which ones are going to go, which ones are going to stay. I think it's also bigger than performance on the field as well. It's recruiting, it's relationship. It's like you have to be very your 3 or 4 biggest hires, I believe, are your offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, and your strength coach. How do those all mix together? Those are big hires, and so yeah, there's a chance that 2 of those positions are probably up for 2 or 3 are probably up for analysis.
My only problem with that, if they do that again, they did that in 23, right? You changed the defensive staff, and then you're just doing that again when it's like the next move for me would be defensive coordinator. If you feel the defense needs to make those changes, that's a big move. And we know how Bret feels about Aaron as the person. I do think 2 of the last 3 years have been underwhelming defensively. So I think there's a reason to make that move if you can find an upgrade, but it's the biggest question mark I have. And I have really no feel for how Bret Bielema feels about it right now.
Well, I would say this. If you see ourselves as a top half Big Ten team, our defense didn't play like a top half defense. So if that's what's lagging and then in turn holding you back from being a playoff team or a top 3rd Big Ten team, you need to make a change.
I agree.
As hard as that is, you need to make a change because that's holding you back from being great in where you want to be at. Bret is a defensive guy with a plethora of defensive contacts. I guarantee you there's no shortage of contacts and relationships. And that's what you get when you get an experienced head coach who's been at multiple spots in the SEC, in the Big Ten, in the NFL. He's got contacts of people that could be a good fit here. It's just a matter, and he's probably got enough money to pay him.
Yes.
It's probably what does he want to do and what does he see fit for where he's at in the program.
That's why it's just I don't think tinkering with the other pieces makes a lot of sense to me. I think if you're going to make a big change, I think the answer is pretty clear. It's got to be at the top of that defense. But offensively, we'll see with Barry Lunny. The Memphis job just came open. I think that's a pretty big job. I'd seen some what was it? The Billy Napier mentioned for that. That's a big job. I just don't know if Barry's going to be top for a job like that. Even a job like North Texas, I think would be really interesting for him. But it'll be interesting to see what his market is out there, if he can land a job. But man, if I'm Illinois, I want to keep that guy around, and I'm paying up to keep him around because he's worth, if it's a $500,000 or $700,000 raise, I think it's worth it with all the other change you're going through.
Well, I think Barry has been a great find by Bret. I think one of the things that people don't understand is that usually when an offensive coordinator comes in, they bring their whole staff with them. Barry didn't have the ability to do that. Really, they just flipped out Lunny for Peterson, and he inherited a lot of the staff. Now he's been able to bring on Justin Stepp. That's been a big bonus. We've seen receiver development increase since Justin Stepp came here. We've seen Thad Ward come back. I don't know if that was Barry Lunny's pick, but that was, a pick that Barry and Bret obviously felt really good about for the running back position. That being said, now, do I think Memphis is a big jump? There's this whole American Conference, I would say, launching pad jobs. Yeah. Memphis, Houston, Tulane, UCF, USF. Those are kind of the jobs you get when you want to go to a bigger school. And so Memphis is a good job to have players there where it's located and whatnot. Easy to get kids into school. Kentucky just opened up. That's probably too big for Lunny to go jump to that level and whatnot. But that being said, I think you want to keep him. But if you do make a change, then I think you actually make a wholesale change, because I think Stepp would go with Lunny somewhere. And I think that the new coordinator want to bring his staff in, which might create changes, on the offensive line. I know Robbie Disher is the tight ends coach, but largely a special teams coach. Thad Ward kind of feels like he's an Illini guy after coming back here a second year. The inventor of Liddyville, which doesn't exist anymore, but all those things to throw in there,
Yeah, it could be. I mean, there's so much change happening. That's why if you could keep Lonnie, like it's just at least for another year, I think would be huge. But we'll see where this goes. I think Art Sikowski is going to get a nice raise this offseason and make sure he sticks around to give him some stability.
Is Sikowski one of their better recruiters or what?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, he got a raise from 40,000 to 200,000 last year, and I would imagine a job title increase and a raise is happening for him too, because he's a future star. I mean, he already is kind of a star recruiter, but giving him some more responsibility in that quarterback room would not surprise me. Sure. All right. Can we talk about the college football at large here, Jay? The coaching carousel went nuts on Sunday. Before we get to the Big Ten and a big hire there, the SEC went fast and furious. Lane and all that drama, he's at LSU. Pete Golding immediately promoted Ole Miss. Otherwise, good time to be a G6 coach. Alex Golesh to Auburn, John Summerall to Florida, Ryan Silverfield to Arkansas. Maybe not as many Power 4 dominoes happening and one, stealing from the other. What were your thoughts on what went down in the SEC?
Well, let's start with Lane. I mean, we knew that there had to be an extension on his desk from Ole Miss since November 1st, you would think, right? I mean, what he's done at Ole Miss, I would put Ole Miss as an equivalent Illinois program, but Ole Miss is like that for the SEC. Like, they've had a couple good years, Archie Manning played there, but like largely they've just been beat up by their neighbors to the east and west, LSU and Alabama. That's basically what it's been like. Like, we've been beat up by Ohio State and Wisconsin and Iowa and different things. So what he's done over the last 5 years is truly remarkable at Ole Miss. And to finally get them to the playoff and have a legitimate chance to possibly win the playoff the way they've been playing and to walk away from it, that's hard to do. Okay. So I'm not sure I'd be able to necessarily do that, but the way the timing is, you feel like LSU, I know, probably had a hard, like, hey, if you don't commit to being a coach, we're going to miss the portal window. We're going to miss the signing window. We're falling apart. And so he made the tough decision. Only he can make that decision. Everybody, I think, will get on Lane Kiffin by the way he does stuff. I actually thought Lane was actually more calm and honest about his thought process, almost too honest than he's ever been. Yeah. And people kind of dogged him for it. But at least he just said what he said. So
I will never, as a reporter, I will never fault a guy for being honest. The only problem is, like, he wanted everything, right? Like, he wanted both to get the LSU job, which I understand. It's a better job. He can recruit better players there. Sure. But he also wanted to coach his team in the playoff. Ole Miss can't allow that. Like, they just have to move on.
Yeah. No, I understand that. And they have a D coordinator who's a mentor, a mentee of Saban, right? And Pete Golding. And so it's like, they might actually end up the best out of anybody because they're going to hire Pete. A lot of interim coaches that take over or assistant coaches take over do well. You have momentum and you get a good offensive coordinator there. You have a Saban disciple there. You could be a problem in the SEC for a while. You felt like, I think John Summerall's a good coach at Tulane. They beat some good teams. It feels a lot like Billy Napier, Sunbelt Billy, right? It feels like that. I know that Summerall's a different side of the ball. I get that. But it just shows you Florida couldn't woo Kiffin. Florida's not that good a job, as we talked about, what it was when we were kids when the old ball coach was there and Spurrier was running the fun and gun, or when Urban, right? It's not that job anymore. And then I look at, Memphis seems to be a launching pad, whether it be Norvell or now it's Silverfield for coaches. I actually like the guy from North Texas a lot.
I love that hire by Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. I think that fits really good. I think in the reworked Big 12, Oklahoma State, it's not that hard to get into the title game in the reworked Big 12. They get good football teams, Texas Tech, BYU, I get it. Iowa State's decent.
Especially if you bring that quarterback with them.
No, it's my thing is like, and they got T. Boone Pickens. They got resources at Oklahoma State to make it happen. Now, Gundy was pretty adamant against the changes in college football, so there was a little bit of a grifter. I think there's going to be a new look in Oklahoma State, and I think that's a really good hire.
How about the Tim Beckman coaching tree? Right?
You got Alex Golish, we got Jason Campbell. Who else?
And then Nathan Chilhouse. Could probably be an NFL offensive coordinator at some point here.
Yeah, I mean, he's the passing game coordinator for like the best passing offense in the NFL with Stafford. So I have no idea where Tim Beckman's at now. I don't know. I don't think he's coached for 10 years now. But his coaching tree lives on.
Yeah. Jonathan Smith fired. What a terrible tenure. 2 years in Michigan State is just falling completely. I know he took over a bad thing there, but man, that was a bad year for them. But then they hire Pat Fitzgerald immediately. What do you think of that fit?
I think it's a really good fit. I really do. I think it's a great fit for him. I thought Pat might get Fitzgerald might be a UCLA guy, but that's a little bit farther away from his Chicago base. He is a really, really good Chicago recruiter, and he'll be a pain, I know, to Bret. Michigan State will be able to pull some people out of Illinois and whatnot. And you look at what Michigan State's been successful when they've been able to play defense. Been able to they had a run of decent quarterbacks with obviously with Cousins and Cook that were there, and they were able to run the football, and they were able to be feisty and successful. And I'm looking forward to these Michigan matchups. I don't know how long Sherrone Moore is going to be there, but it seems like he's there at least for now. But that being said, I think it's a really good fit. I think Robert Fitzgerald will probably be in the portal tomorrow from Northwestern to Michigan State. I was really impressed by how he played. But I think it's a really good fit. He's in the mold of Ferentz and what Bret Bielema does and what Paul Christ and Alvarez had done. So he's a proven program builder to actually build that up. Now I'm interested to see how he's able to recruit at somewhere that's not his alma mater. Okay.
And we can't forget last 3 years did not go very well for him.
He won 2 division titles in 2018 and 2020, but really was going downhill. And there was even talk at Northwestern, did we sign him to this life contract and we don't want him? So I think it's a good fit. I think it's really interesting what it's going to look like outside Northwestern. This guy hasn't coached outside of Northwestern since like 2003.
All right. All's quiet with Penn State.
Man, it's like, are they waiting for somebody in a championship game that they want to poach?
I mean, there's the rumors of DeBoer. There's talk of them talking to Sataki out at BYU, which is it's so far from where he's been his entire life. He's a BYU player. It's just been very, very quiet. UCLA, I've seen Bob Chesney in the mix, but yeah, those 2 jobs in the Big Ten still have to be filled. But the Penn State one, I know I keep saying Matt Campbell made so much sense to me. It's going to be interesting if they can land DeBoer. What a get that would be. But if they don't, where do they go?
Well, my question is why would DeBoer leave? Because they don't like him in Alabama, or that he doesn't like it there, or what? I mean, you're already with a perennial playoff contender with a lot of resources. I know there's been rumors that Alabama doesn't have resources. I don't buy that. Alabama's got plenty of resources. Do you play an easier schedule? I don't know. Maybe if you go to Penn State. I guess I'm losing my ability. Maybe it's a Joe Brady in the NFL who I think is the Bills OC, but I'm losing faith that they're actually going to get their guy. They got a lot of guys extensions, but which makes me think that they probably had someone call Signetti's guy and say, hey, would Signetti do this? And it kind of got back to Indiana and locked it up. And then there was a feeler for Rule, and Rule got locked up, which we're not sure Rule's a great fit anyway. But a guy who has just gone off the radar, who was always on the radar, was PJ Fleck. He's a guy that's been off the radar for a long, long time.
What a coaching job this year. I don't think that team is any good, and they're 7-5.
No, they're not that good. But they're 7-5. They just manhandled a Wisconsin team that we got beat to. No one talks about PJ Fleck, still young. Could he recruit at a place like Penn State? Absolutely.
Like Florida State should be interested in PJ Fleck.
I'm not sure why. Like it sounded like when he was on his at Western Michigan, PJ Fleck, PJ Fleck, PJ Fleck. This first couple of years at Minnesota, he goes. I think it was the Citrus Bowl. Maybe it was the ReliaQuest Bowl, but they beat Auburn at one of those bowl games.
Yeah.
People are talking about PJ Fleck, PJ Fleck, PJ Fleck. I still don't understand why no more people have not made a play at PJ Fleck to be their coach.
I don't know. I mean, he's probably maxed out that school. I mean, he's 65-44. He's won 6 bowl games, made 7 of 8 bowl games at Minnesota. He's done an unbelievable job. So if I'm thinking of like North Carolina opens up, like they should be after a guy like PJ. I just think he's a really, really good coach.
No, 100%. And there's not a lot of native football players in Minnesota. There's a lot of hockey players. They don't get a lot of homegrown talent, much like Colorado. There's not a ton of homegrown talent in these states. He's done a really good job there. And so I often ask the question, why is he not on the list of more teams? And I don't know. Of course, you got Brian Hartline as well, who's out there, but never been a real head coach. I think Hartline is a really good fit for a place like Tulane or Memphis or any of theirs. If they could grab him like that, seems like a guy that would be a really good fit for that.
Yeah. All right, Jay, this was fantastic. Great look at the season, the offseason ahead. It's a big offseason for Bret Bielema, but at least they got some momentum going into this bowl game with 8 wins and another Land of Lincoln Trophy win. J Leman, you're the goods. We'll talk soon, man.
I love it.